G'day, my name is Jared Davis and I'm putting together this tutorial video on how to import from Corel Draw into Gunnar SPT32 software. So we're going to import an image such as a JPEG or a bitmap or a scanned image into Corel Draw, then we're going to vectorize or trace it, and then we're going to copy and paste it into SPT32 to cut. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to go File, Import, and then locate our file. In this case it is this Superman symbol. Double click, and I can now draw that on the screen using click and drag and drop it on the screen. So there you can see it, and you might notice it's a little bit pixelated because it's a low-res image. Low-res images are probably better to work with than high-res images because there's less cleanup time on low-res images, which you'll see later on when we clean up control points or nodes. Okay, so the first step, now that we have the image on the screen, at the moment it's just a single object. It is just a JPEG, and neither Corel nor Gunnar recognize any lines, points, or coordinates in this. So what we need to do is to trace it so that we can effectively convert this image into lines and coordinates. So what we're going to do in Corel X4, they have integrated into here a tracing mechanism. So we can trace this. We go to bitmaps, and then we're going to go outline trace, and then trace by clipart properties. Use this 90% of the time. The default parameters set for the clipart properties are generally pretty good, and you won't need to do much changing or adjustment of any of these functions. As you can see here, you've got your before and after, and at the top you've got your pixelated JPEG, and at the bottom you've got your nice smooth vectorized image, which is made up of lines and coordinates and block colors. If you do have more than one color, generally it's best to work with black and white images, but if you've got a lot of colors like some grayscaling or whatever, you can always change the colors and scale them down to say 2 colors if you need to get different effects. But 90% of the time just work with the default value. So we'll click OK, and that will now place on top of our original JPEG a vectorized representation. So I'm going to select our original JPEG and hit delete to blow that away. We don't need that anymore. So let's bring this back in here. Now at the moment it's a bit hard to see what the Gunnar sees, all the lines and coordinates. So what we're going to do is go to View, Wireframe, and now we can see the lines and coordinates that we're going to be working with. So what I want to do first of all, this is all grouped together as one object, and there's each of these little objects is an object to cut on the Gunnar, and I want to discard some of these just to get down to our raw base shapes that we need to cut this shape. So the first step I'm going to do is go to Arrange, Ungroup, and then also I will go, no, I won't go there. I will now unselect all of these objects, and now I'm going to select each individual object, as you can see, and discard the ones that I won't. So I'll select this triangle, get rid of it because we don't need to cut a white triangle. We just want the big S. Now can you see here there are objects inside objects, and what we're going to do is delete some of them. So we've zoomed in. By the way, you zoom in using your mouse wheel on your mouse. So I'm going to select this object and delete it, and also then this will be an object which I have to delete. So I'm just left with the outside. Once again, I select the outside one, left with the internal, and here select the internal one, then we'll select the black line. Can you see in here there's a single line? It's very hard to see, but these, if you leave them there, the machine will try to cut them. So if you see the machine behaving weirdly when you're cutting an imported design, I bet if you zoom in you'll find that there's some evidence of a stray object there that you didn't want to cut. Okay, so then we zoom in here, get rid of some of these shapes. So I'm just selecting with the mouse, and then I'm just hitting the delete button to delete the shapes we want. And now you can see we're left with the basic raw shape. Now believe it or not, I could cut and paste this straight into SPT32 now just by simply selecting all and then going Control C to copy, or I can go Edit Copy, and then I can paste it into SPT32 and cut it, and it will cut it, but it will cut it as inaccurate as you can see here. Can you see that this is not a straight line? This is a little bit wavy. There is some general imperfections in this shape here which may not be desired, and so if you want good quality cuts you have to do cleanup, And this is the time-consuming part. This is the easy part. What we've done there is tracing and discarding, but the time-consuming part now is cleaning this image up. And the first step to cleaning up is we need to make sure that the image is broken apart. So we go Arrange, Break Curve Apart, Control K. So that means now I can separate my images into separate individual openings. Can you see that? Before it was all one thing, but now it is individual. Okay, so now what I can do is I'm going to change into an extra tool here. We've been using the Pick tool, which is your standard default tool, but now I'm going to change it to the Shape tool. So click on this, and this allows us to modify the actual shape that we've selected. Can you see here these little dots? These are called control points or nodes, and these control the shape of the image. So you can move and modify these control points as you desire to change the shape of the image, but you can also change the splines off the curve lines. You can also just grab a line itself and move it as well. So there's quite a lot of flexibility using Corel Draw to modify any shapes that may not come out as perfect as you want. Now, can you also see over here, let's have a look on the large outside pentagon. This point here leads into a curve, into a curvy line. Now, we want that to be a nice straight line. If you go anywhere on the curve and right-click on the curve, this area here tells you the properties of that curve, and at the moment it's phased out saying to curve, which means it is a curve. Now what we want to do is we want to say make that a straight line, and you can see here it straightens it up. And let me tell you, when you set the properties of a line to a line, the Gunnar understands it's a line and does a nice crisp straight cut. If you zoom in here, I think you'll see a similar problem here. This curves in. We want that to be a crisp cut, so we go right click on the line, change it to line, and there we have it. Now when something is a line, you cannot adjust it like a curve. It actually stays as it is. By the way, if you accidentally move something, you can go to your undo button here and you can get back to where you were. So undo works quite reliably in Corel Draw.